Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. All right. Well, welcome, Carin, to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. I am excited to have you today. We actually met through the podcast. So this is a wonderful thing. I'm finding that a lot of people are finding the podcast and reaching out, and it's just been I'm just super grateful for it. And I'm super grateful that you reached out to me because you have quite the story from literally whiskey to menopause or perimenopause. And so I was like, okay, you've got me. I'm intrigued. Let's do this. So we jumped on a pre-call. I loved your story. And now I want you to share it here with my audience. So I'm going to hand the floor over to you, Carin, and just give me let's give a little bit of a backstory and then we'll get into it.
Thank you so much, Lynette. As a two-time entrepreneur and midlife woman, I'm really happy to share my story with your listeners. I hope it resonates and gives some inspiration. So a little bit about me. I'm a second-time entrepreneur. My first career was actually that of a graphic designer. I did that for 17 years before I finally decided to pursue my passion and start a business. It took me about 3 years to finally get the courage to do so. And that passion was whiskey, if you can believe it. I was really enjoying these moments of connection in real life over a glass of Scotch. And through the years, I came to realize that Scotch is such a misunderstood spirit, that people think it's like an old man's drink, stodgy, and too many rules. So I decided it was time for someone to shake up that industry. And what better person than, a Hispanic woman to do so? So the brand took off, won numerous awards, and was very well received in the market and eventually acquired by one of the largest spirit companies in the world. So The second time around, when I decided to start a business, it was a little bit easier, a lot less imposter syndrome. But this time around, it found me. So yeah, it found me in the form of hot flashes. And I was in my early 40s. I'm 47 now. And I had this question I kept asking pretty much everyone around me was, hey, is it hot or is it just me? And came to realize it was mostly just me and that I was also deep into perimenopause. So I had other symptoms like night sweats, hair loss, anxiety, and so much more. And then eventually came to find that my doctor wasn't really much help at first until I finally found a really amazing doctor. And started talking about HRT, and also came to realize that a lot of women are kind of suffering silently through perimenopause and menopause, and they're looking for resources, products, and solutions to help navigate these symptoms. So I decided to create Hot or Just Me.
Hot or Just Me is a sort of a website, right? It's a page that people can go to. Okay, so let's dig in. So first of all, Hispanic woman, Scotch. Yeah, it makes no sense at all. I mean, I would have thought it would be a tequila brand or a mezcal, but so Scotch. So tell us a little bit more about that. So honestly, that just sounds to me so overwhelming. Like, how would you even push through, wiggle your way through into, the people and, to create this brand? Like, how did you even the science behind it, like the chemistry behind it. Yeah. So how did you get started?
It's funny you said about the chemistry. So I reached out to someone that I admired in the industry and I asked, hey, do you have any advice for someone that's starting out? He said, yes, you should read The Alchemist. And I thought, wait, is this a different book? Or is this the one I read in high school, like the Paulo Coelho? And he's like, no, that one. And so sure enough, it's like, when you set your intention, the universe will conspire to help make it so. And I really believe that. And then I got rejected 80 times along the way. But, I think each of these rejections, this is me trying to find a partner to make the liquid, right? So I created a recipe in my kitchen with different blends. And I thought, this is it. This is the formula that I want. A lot of vanilla, caramel, citrus, honeys, and no smoke at all. Like just really inviting, cocktail friendly. But again, since I didn't know anyone in the industry, it was just rejection after rejection. And this is over the course of years, right? Where I was like just trying to find the right partner. And I counted, it was actually 80 times I got rejected. Distillers, blenders, contract blenders. And it was finally this one email that I received, and it was from two women, if you could believe that, sisters that were taking over their dad's Scotch importing business. And they said, yes, we have all the resources and we really believe in what you're doing. We too want to bring a younger demographic to this spirit. So I was off to the races. We worked together on the blend. I went through about 5 different names trying to trademark it, and then eventually landed on Sia, which means the number 6. So it was just kind of funny. It was the 6th name. And then, yeah, everything from putting together the packaging and all of the taxes and the liabilities and insurance and warehousing, freight, all the things that come into having a physical product business. And then it came time to launch and to grow customers. So that was a really exciting time. And it was also a lot of learning involved. I think in hindsight, had I known how difficult it would have been, I might have thought twice about it. But I think that's the benefit of doing something brand new, is that you have that level of naivete that lets you.
How old were you again?
I was in my mid-30s. I was going through a divorce at the time.
Yeah.
So another big challenge in my life, but it very much caused me to kind of shake up my identity and realize like, hey, I'm unhappy in my job and what's really bringing me joy. So I think in these times of what look like darkness, you can actually find quite a bit of light.
Yeah, no kidding. So, okay. So you are being your own chemist. Do you have any kind of chemistry background or anything? Or are you
Not
just
at
like,
all,
hey,
no.
okay.
No.
So how did you even know? Yeah. Oh, I'm going to put a little of this and a little bit of that.
Exactly.
And first of all, I love that it was more of a caramely flavor, because I am actually a bourbon drinker, because I don't like Scotch because this tends to be a little bit too smoky. So,
exactly.
Okay. So so you got your goggles on, you got your lab coat on in your kitchen. What's happening?
I mean, it's a lot. It's not quite as romantic as that. So I was reading a lot about blenders, and blenders basically take existing whiskeys and create a new recipe the way that you would, ingredients or a cocktail, right? You're just using different whiskeys to create a new recipe. And so that's what I started doing. I would take different whiskeys that I had in my collection and make different blends. And I threw away a lot of really good whiskey.
Yes.
There was just some bad experiments, but there was finally one that I thought, this is it. This is how I could introduce a whole new generation of people to this category. And then, I then took that sample and worked with real blenders, right? And this is like master blenders. This is what they do. A little bit of art and chemistry, and a lot of them do a lot by nosing. They put it through different machines to kind of see the breakdown of, all the different components in the whiskey. And then we work with the stock that they have in order to get the same flavor profile. So it's really just about matching a flavor profile.
Okay. So those blenders, were they part of this women's group, or that was your sort of journey along the way?
That was my journey. They introduced me to them.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you were getting rejected 80 odd times, I want to talk about two sort of paths. One, your mental path, because, obviously that's, you got to be pushing through. So each time, were you taking feedback and kind of trying to perfect it, or what was sort of the product development cycle?
Yeah, I think the rejections came in just trying to find a partner, right? And even knowing what kind of a partner to find. So I would just reach out to distilleries I had visited. And then, there was one that said like, oh no, we don't do contract blending. And I thought, let me Google what contract blending is. So it was a lot like just pulling on this thread until I finally kind of unraveled the mystery of like how to put it together. And then everything from, when you're starting out, sometimes your prices have to be really high because you're buying at small quantities. What's that sweet spot that I can create this, maybe like 200 cases or something really small to start, but still enough that I can sell it and see like proof of concept. Is this working? So I think now, in tech terms, they call it like MVP or minimum viable product. But yeah, for me, it was just very much like, I don't want to outlay too much of my savings, because at that point it was very depleted. But also, to make sure that it was enough to make sure that I was onto something.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love that you use the term minimal viable product, because I think that's something that I teach in my Passion to Profit Blueprint course, is like, let's just take an idea. Let's figure out who your target market is. Let's get that really narrowed down. And then let's just start like one small thing that you're going to do to solve their problem. And then it grows, right? So, I mean, I'm sure that as you got rejected, your Google searches actually made your product better, right?
Yeah. And just kind of like honing in on, what is not only the spirit, but who is my customer? What am I going after? How am I going to market it? And one of the things that I kind of lean into was, when you're small, I read a book somewhere that you can use your smallness, right? Like some of these big corporations don't have a person behind the brand, right? They don't have, like, they have to use some kind of mascot or cartoon or something, right? To pretend like it's, a little bit more relatable. But when you have a human behind it, people can relate to that person. And so it was fun being like, a woman behind the Scotch brand. I still, to this day, when you go into, let's say, like a Total Wine and More, this is the only brand that was founded by a woman. There's 3,000 brands of Scotch on that aisle. And so that really means a lot to the people that work there. when somebody's looking for something new or unique or as a gift or, something with a story, they're like, hey, you should try this brand. Not only is it 96 point, winning and beat out, brands like Johnny Walker Blue, but it's also, female founded and Hispanic founded. So definitely, using your smallness to your advantage and kind of leaning into that. And then the same way, like when it came to the brand, like what else can we do to lean into my heritage? So we would do a lot around Women's History Month and a lot around Hispanic Heritage Month. We would do cocktails that people wouldn't expect, like a daiquiri or a mojito with scotch. And it was just so much fun and just so I don't know, heartwarming to be able to kind of pull a part of who I am into the brand.
Where are you from?
So my mom and dad are Cuban. I grew up in Miami, Florida. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that was but so did you like cigars?
No, not at all.
You're like a Scotch and cigar girl? You're just like, I'm just drinking Scotch.
No, that part was so hard because there were so many events that were happening in cigar bars. And I would just I'd have to step out of the room because it was just too much for me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. So now is the brand still, okay, so how long did you spend with these women and then what was your sort of exit strategy?
Yeah. So what's great is they actually ended up becoming investors and partners in the brand about 2 years into us working together. So they got to know me, they got to know my work ethic. And the cool part about that relationship was their business basically became the bank. They were the importer of record for the spirit. And we had already had some customers at that point, some amazing distribution partnerships, some awards. So the brand was definitely off to the races. It was great to be able to work with them so that I didn't have to go out and raise money to fund inventory. So they basically became almost like a factoring relationship where they would, create the product. And then as sales would come in, they'd get reimbursed for their portion of the production. And so we did that for about 6 years. And then it came time to say all right, it might be time to start hiring a team and do a real fundraise. And I was looking to raise about $1 million. And we were at about 700,000 in the raise when I got an inquiry from someone that had turned me down as an investor, but said that they had a connection. Yeah, this is a fun fact. So anyone who's out there raising money, I think that it's really important to keep in touch with everyone who said no and send them a monthly update, just what's going on. Because sometimes people don't want to be the first, but they're interested. And, I remember seeing this email that every month, nobody would ever unsubscribe. And every single person opened it because I was tracking it.
Okay.
And one of the investors said, hey, I just had lunch with someone pretty high up at a major spirits conglomerate. And they asked me if I had known of anything new. And I'd just gotten your email. So I read it to them and they want to meet you. And so it went from fundraising to full acquisition of the brand. And that was a really amazing transition because I got to have a front seat at how the big guys do it, right? And how brands grow from a different way with, means and relationships that I didn't have, hotel groups, restaurant groups, chains. So it was nice to see my little baby grow up and go to college.
And you know what? As you're telling this story, I can feel how exciting it must have been throughout that journey. And, I think what you said there about, got rejected 80 times, you could have just said, forget you, I'm going to show you. But you didn't. You stayed the course, you persevered, and then the follow-up and then maintaining those relationships. That was such a smart idea. Did somebody tell you to do that or you just kind of knew?
Funny. It actually came from an investor that said, no, I'm not interested, but keep me in the loop. And then the second time that happened, I was like, what does this keep me in the loop mean? Do you want like a status report? And they're like, yeah, it'd be great, just to kind of see how the brand progresses because we might not invest now, but we might invest later. And I thought, that's amazing. So I did that and it worked.
Oh my gosh, that is, I love that part of that story. I didn't know that part of the story when we were on our pre-call. Yeah. And I think that's so good with just anybody. Often rejection can feel like they rejected me and therefore I'm not going to,
Yeah, I read this quote once. This is amazing. It was from the woman who started a makeup line called Bare Essentials. But she said that there's the person, like the entrepreneur, and there's the brand. And there's a difference. So a rejection against one is not a rejection against the other. And to have that kind of divide is really important, especially when you are the brand or when you are very tied to the brand, right? Like to still separate that sort of business and person and not take offense when there's a rejection.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that. Actually, I'm going to just park that in my little brain here to remember that. That's really good. I love that part. So, okay. So where did you get the USFA to say, I'm going to go out, I'm going to make this like tequila brand or this Scotch brand. And I'm going to like go out and I'm going to grow this brand and I'm going to sell it and be able to move on to do other things.
Yeah. I mean, the selling part was a surprise. I didn't see that coming. It definitely happened earlier than I thought it would. And, that's good and bad, right? Because it's like, I think a lot of companies know how to make something that's big and growing bigger, but not all of them know how to make something small into something big. It was definitely like, I got to be like in the front row during that process, which was great. And then, got to work with their master blenders who, are like legends in the industry. So I was literally shaking when I went into the room. Like they really had the chemistry set you're talking about. And it was just a really beautiful experience. And then, eventually it was time to move on. Right. And so excited to figure out what's next, but I gave myself a little pause and room. And it was a really nice time because I'd been spending so many years traveling and being away from my kids. And so it's been nice to kind of just reconnect and now work on a business that requires no travel at all. So they get me every day after school.
Yeah, that's great. So I like what you're saying there, and we'll just finish up on that side of the story, is like lots of people, when in a startup, they always say like, what is your exit strategy before you even get started? But I don't even know. Like, and I often wonder too, when you're starting something now, do you really need to put that fully baked business plan together? I mean, I think your VCs want to see that, like when you're raising money, for sure they want to see where you're going and they want to see the numbers. But I don't know. For some reason, I feel like when you're just starting, right? Like you're just thinking, hey, I'm going to like have this Scotch brand. I'm going to do these things. I don't know. Like, did you have a fully baked business plan? Or?
Well, I mean, I did write a business plan and I think I spent too much time on it, to be honest with you, because I didn't even know the industry, right? So here I am like filling out these blanks that I don't know. So I think the biggest thing is just to get some initial traction, right? Like prove, is this working? Is this something? And then, as you start to learn a little bit more, then you could flesh it out. I think the business canvas template? It just does a really good job to just one page, really simple. And then now with ChatGPT and AI, like you can really fast track your idea and just have it like ask you the questions about the business. And then it kind of helps you flesh it out. I think, we're thankfully in a time right now where things can move a lot faster.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is some merit to having, like, I'd say, like a destination on your GPS, right? Like you can't just get in your car and be like, I don't know, where are we going today?
Exactly.
So definitely saying like, okay, is this going to be like a cash flow business? Is this like a legacy business I want to leave to my family? Is this something I want to exit from? So just having like some kind of semblance is important. And then as you kind of start to build out the business, you could get a little bit more clear on exactly what that is.
Yeah. So everything you're saying there is so good. So that business canvas that you are talking about is just a one-page business case, really. I think they came out like maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago. But you're right. It does. It has all these little boxes, value propositions, just for everybody who's listening who may not know about it. It is a really good, like just like a little map. And you can handwrite everything out. And I think, like you said, ChatGPT does exist. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel like ChatGPT doesn't, if you don't put critical thinking in to the ChatGPT, I think it just kind of gaslights you half the time as well.
It's like garbage in, garbage out, right? Like you have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there has to be some critical thinking. And I know even in my program, Passion and Profit Blueprint, I give them some ChatGPT prompts, but only to validate what they wrote. And I think that is what is the key part. So no, that's great. I love it. And I think too, as you get into motion, as you were explaining, you do need to understand the destination, but it doesn't always have to be so clear, and it's not like, oh, I can see it visually, like so vivid that it's right there. It's get on this path and, it found its way. And you were, through your rejections, I guess, you were being guided into the right direction, I guess.
I think, the only counter to it would be when you're raising money, like you need to be very, very clear, right? About how you're going to use the money, how you're going to use it to kind of like fuel the fire that you already started and, how investors will get repaid. So I think that's probably like when you need to be a little bit more clear, but in the meantime, like, just kind of figure out. Yeah, exactly. And just get started. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like the analysis paralysis. Like there's so many possibilities. And so just starting is the biggest hurdle.
Love that you said analysis paralysis because it's an excellent segue to the gremlin. So along the way, I call it the gremlin. That's my inner critic that self-sabotages left, right, and center and then causes analysis paralysis. So I think there's like 5 or 6 different types of inner critic: fear and procrastination and self-sabotage and stuff, analysis paralysis. How did you manage that? Like, come on, there had to, like, you were like, I mean, there's no way you were like,
The short answer is not well. Yeah. I mean, the inner critic is real, right? Like for me, it's like imposter syndrome, right? Like what business do I have starting a brand of Scotch? Or now, I'm not a medical professional. What business do I have starting a menopause brand? And so I think it's just like being able to kind of just like listen to it and say like, is this real? Like, is there any merit to this hesitation? And just kind of explore it. Maybe like become a little friends with your gremlin and, just say like, what is it you're trying to tell me? And then just say like, okay, that's not a real fear. That's not a real concern, or here's how I can overcome that. Who can I align myself with that can help me that in areas that I don't know? And yeah, just kind of, use it as a guide, if anything, versus something that you're afraid of. How do you get cozy with your gremlin?
No, and you said like, how do you become friends with it? Because, when you say the word, exactly. And it's always going to be there. Right. And so I love that analogy. Like, we're going to be tangoing together along the way. So let's just be friends. And usually what it's doing is it's just trying to keep you safe. Right. It doesn't want you to fail. You just went through a divorce. I mean, come on. Do you really want to go through another
spend your
failure?
life savings on a business? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so is it hot or is it just me? All right, give me the lowdown. What do we got here?
So so it's basically a website that has resources. We've got about 50 articles about perimenopause, menopause, symptoms, HRT, diet, bone loss, like anything that you might have a question about. And then at its heart is products that will help alleviate some of the more common symptoms like hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, fatigue, low libido, vaginal dryness. We have a bookstore and a gift shop. And it all kind of starts out with this great quiz that just, no email address necessary. Just, put in your age, what stage you're in or think you're in, and what symptoms you're experiencing. And then you'll get some results that could hopefully help guide you through some of these symptoms.
Okay, so are you wearing anything? Like you went on our pre-call. Okay, so let's so tell us, go into more depth about, so essentially this website is an aggregation of everything that you could probably Google search out there, but it's just a nice one-stop destination to find some different types of resources. Like you said, articles, there's products, and there's some pretty cool products on there. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, like the bracelet that you're wearing, if you're listening to the podcast, it's actually quite a nice, trendy looking bracelet. And then if you're actually watching it on YouTube, you can see it. So give us a show of the bracelet.
I try to support female-founded brands as much as possible on the site. Amazing. And then obviously we also have quite an amazing cause that we give back to, which is period.org. It gives menstrual products to young women. And then I'm looking to find some organizations that champion menopause in the workplace. So we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
And then so this is just one of the examples, but from a company called Hot Girl Pearls, and it's a freezable bracelet. So you put in the freezer, it has its own little pouch here that it comes in, it goes in the freezer.
Okay.
And then it kind of activates. So what I love about it is on your pulse points, right? So it can help kind of cool you down when you're feeling like overheated, or I just kind of keep wearing it because it's comfortable and it maintains coolness for quite a while. And they also have a necklace that is the same style, and they come in different colors. Blue, they have a sand color that's also really beautiful. And there's also just a big collection of wearables like anti-wick tank tops. We have incredible products for your home, such as like bedding, cooling sheets. We've got cooling eye masks. We have fans. And when I say we have a fan, like, it's not just like, oh, I picked this fan. It's like, no, I went on and I bought 40 different fans. And I can tell you that the one that like is on the site, like it doesn't overheat. It doesn't catch your hair. It's not too loud. It doesn't run out of batteries too quickly. So everything's been very well vetted and tested, not only by myself, but many other women. And also, as I mentioned, just try to support as many female founded brands as possible.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. How are you finding these these brands?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I don't know how this keeps happening, but it does. Maybe I just kind of put this out into the universe. But in terms of finding an entrepreneurial community, when I had my Scotch brand, a woman that had a gin brand reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm starting this group. Do you want to be a founding member?" I said, "Sure." And it's basically, we called it the Women's Cocktail Collective, and it became now 35 female founders of spirit brands. So just women going at it alone, no husband-wife teams or anything like that. And what was beautiful, it was very much about collaboration and not competition. And we really leaned on each other for advice and support. Like, "Hey, are you working with this distributor?" Or like, "Who's your co-packer for this?" Or, just like honest feedback, really. And then when it came to do like events, we would all pool our money together and get like a massive like table or area of the convention center, so we could really just have strength in numbers versus trying to do it all by ourselves. And it was really beautiful to be a part of that. And then the same thing is now happening for me in the menopause industry. One of the brands that I reached out to said, "Hey, we have this menopause brain trust," and we're about, I think there are 120 practitioners, businesses, places, brand owners that have all kind of united, and we've done some social media campaigns together. There's like a movie screening for the M Factor, which is a great movie, and then brands will reunite there for those kinds of events. So it's been really nice to see how in many different industries, right, that you can find alliances with similar brands, so that you can grow together.
This community. So this is where, finding a community, I think, and especially as women, I think that's really super supportive, especially women in their phase, midlife kind of thing, starting businesses, need other women who are in their 50s or midlife, to collaborate with, because nobody really understands it. And I think just like supporting each other and through that sort of mindset and through all those different things. So
yeah.
That's where you're finding these products, or I heard about this, or
yeah. So one will beget another, right? At the end of a conversation with the brand that I'm bringing on, I'll say like, "Hey, do you have other brands that you recommend or that you've worked with or that you think should be on the site?" And then that's just kind of like how it goes, right? And so being able to just kind of find the right brands. The ones that I'm kind of leaning away from right now are any of these supplements that seem to be like a one size fits all, like Miracle Cure, because I just don't believe in that. And so very careful not only about what I do put on the site, but what I don't put on as well.
Right. And on that site, are there any sort of like a menopausal friendly doctors, I guess? And the reason why I ask you that is because I know even a lot of my friends get a little bit gaslighted by their doctor. It's just part of aging. And I don't think we have to suffer. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, even just around HRT. It's dated, particularly really dated, and it's particularly developed by men. So, you can go to a male doctor, they have no idea what you're going through.
This is exactly what happened to me. Like similar to your friend, I went to my doctor with, feelings of, "Hey, I'm a little sadder than usual. Something's not quite right. Or, I'm not sleeping well." And he was very quick to put me on some antidepressants and some Xanax. And I thought like, whoa. Like, this is way too much. Like, this doesn't feel right. So kind of went back to like, my tribe, my girlfriend medicine, if you will. And like, "Hey, like, are you guys feeling this too?" And they're like, "Yeah." And you always have that older friend that's kind of been down the road. She's like, "You might need to like, number one, switch doctors and get yourself a doctor that knows about menopause." And so I did some research, and now I direct people to menopause.org, which is an amazing website. It's kind of like, the Holy Bible of information, but they have a find your practitioner site where there are doctors who have been certified as menopause experts, or not experts, but have done the extra level of certification, right? That they have to do to get this certificate. And what I learned also was that all doctors in the United States are only averaging about 3 to 4 hours of training on menopause in their residency. So it's not much. And so of course they're like gonna, give you what they think is for the symptom, because they're not taking a holistic look and saying, "Hey, how old are you?" Or "What other symptoms are having?" Or "Tell me about your maternal history." And so they kind of say like, "You might be in perimenopause." And so I think it's important for women to push back and to find out like, "Hey, how, are you certified, through menopause.org, or is there someone in your practice that is?" Or if you can't find someone through the website that's listed there in your zip code, you can find telehealth options. Like there's Alloy, there's Evernow, there's MIDI Health, and most of these are all covered by your insurance, so that you can start to have the conversations with a trained professional about your
Yeah.
hormone health. So I'm not a
Exactly.
medical professional. I don't claim
No,
to be. So
yeah.
I always tell people,
And
like, consult your doctor.
yeah, I was just gonna say that. We
Yeah.
know that you don't have the medical background, but you've done enough research to like what you're doing, and that's aggregating the information so that people can make informed decisions. I mean, sometimes we can get down this path of Google searching and we're just like, oh my God, it just becomes so overwhelming. So you just hit close on the browser
Yeah.
and you think, oh, I'll get to that tomorrow.
And then you get
But you know
another
what?
symptom.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, what is this? I mean, I think when I turned 50, I got every single symptom all like within the first year, like wicked vertigo
Mm.
there's just so much. But one thing I was going to ask you is, it sort of sounds like what you're suggesting is that obviously, get your doctor involved, but it's not just a one-stop. You kind of said like you kind of steer away from those supplements that claim to
Yeah.
be this one-stop thing. So supplements aside, I personally am on HRT, but I also know that I have symptoms that sort of poke through.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, is my HRT not sort of strong enough or whatever? So I think, and I'm not asking you for medical advice, but
No.
what I'm suggesting is like, I think everything has to be treated like a system, right? And is that kind of what are you sort of finding?
Yeah. So I think in what I've read, and I like to point people to a wonderful book that we actually do sell on our site called The New Menopause by Dr. Mary Claire Haver, where she
Yeah.
talks quite a bit about HRT and how to, approach conversations with your doctor. And that it's not just always an instant solution, right? You might have to try different levels of hormones and maybe different modalities of them to find what the right fit is. And to your point, like sometimes it doesn't solve for all of them, right? Of all the symptoms that you're facing. Women will have up to 100 different symptoms during perimenopause. Some of them are definitely more common than others, but there are some that are extremely obscure. Burning tongue sensation or ringing in your ears or frozen shoulder. And, some of the more common ones like, hot flashes and low libido and insomnia, you can definitely find other ways around finding support for those while you're taking HRT or maybe before or after. And then just in terms of some like terms for women, menopause is defined as the one day that you, it's like almost the birthday, right, of not having had your period for 12 months. And everything after that would be postmenopause. And everything leading up to that day is considered perimenopause. And this can last anywhere from 3 to 10 years, on average about 7 years for women. The average age for that day of menopause is 51, but it can happen anywhere between 45, 55. And again, there's also, because we're all so different, right? And many reasons, some women might not even know when their period ended because they might not have had it on the regular cycle for various reasons. And so, I think that it's a big, big topic, and one that has so many layers and nuances, and your symptoms might be different than my symptoms, than someone
Absolutely.
else's at different stages and severities. So it's really just, trying to find comfort and relief where you can.
So you're just so full of energy and you're talking about it. It's just obviously you're passionate about it. So, okay, two things. Let's go back to that gremlin. You talked earlier about like the imposter syndrome with both through the Scotch and the menopause. Like you're obviously not a medical doctor. You're not here to provide any advice. You're just here to inform that there are solutions out there, and your website can offer some guidance in that way. So what keeps you going? Because you have to have run into somebody that says, like, are you a doctor? Like,
Yeah.
and then do you sort of question yourself, or are you so clear in your mind that no, I'm not a doctor and that's okay?
I think the bigger one was more, why hasn't this been done before? Like, hey, this doesn't exist, so maybe it's a bad idea, or maybe the world doesn't need it, or maybe people aren't looking for, like, all these, like, the doubt was more about the business this time around than it was about my capability to do it. And so that was like a lot of fear. And then, starting to see like, the fear is, what if somebody else does it first, right? Or what if like they do it, like they come along afterwards and do it better? So it's just more of like, okay, how do I get this off the ground and successful as quickly as possible and into, the minds of as many women that I can help as possible. So I think,
yeah, go ahead. You think?
No, it's just more about, finding is like, is the path. It's not so much as, is this me? It's just like, am I on the right road?
Yeah. So what would you say 5 key steps, or what would you say just even the key steps are when you're okay, is it hot or just me? I'm going to launch this website. Okay. So I do a little bit of research, like, tell us through, like, and then you realize, okay, there's nobody else doing it. So then that's the first thing. People think, oh, great. But then most of the time, it's better actually if somebody has forged the path before you. So tell us a little bit about that.
I think the business model was one that I kind of explored, like, should I just do affiliate partnerships or should I warehouse the products myself? There's a lot of these like 3PL warehouses that like will ship for you. And I thought, I'm not ready for that. Like, so I committed to sending out the first 1,000 orders myself. And so that I can like hand write a note to the customers. I can put in some free gifts with each order and just really kind of get to know the business from the inside. The same way as like, when I was doing my whiskey business, I would do a lot of the customer demos in grocery stores myself, where I'm literally handing out like samples of whiskey so that I can see people's reactions, see what resonates with them, and really get to know my customer and the story behind it. And so I think it's important that you do a lot of it yourself first, right? And so that was one part. Then the naming of it was kind of a fun journey too. Like, with AI, I kind of tried like a couple names out. I said like, okay, well, here's the business idea, like some naming ideas. And they came back with horrible ones like menopause marketplace. And I thought like, no. And then this one just kind of found me where I was like, I think that this could be a kind of a catchy name. It seems like it speaks to what it is without, saying exactly what it is. And let me see if it's available. And sure enough, everything was available, trademarks, websites, social media. So it's just really easy to kind of get that part going. And then, picking out which products, right? Like I didn't want to sit on, 20 different categories of inventory because I am self-funding it right now. And so it was very much like, okay, what's like the MVP, right? Like what's the 80-20? What are the most common symptoms and what are the best tools that I can support? And then have a variety of price points around them. And then this is where the imposter syndrome gremlin, if you will, came back. This little gremlin was around, but you're in your 40s, you don't really know social media, you don't really do digital marketing. Like your business was about like trucks and warehouses and completely different. So it was just about like, okay, well, if I don't know how to do it, can I find to help me support or how to learn? I found a wonderful community for e-commerce brands called Founder, Foundr. So skip the E. It has great courses about, how to do Facebook ads, social media marketing, and was able to kind of find community there around other entrepreneurs that were in the e-com space.
Yeah, no, and I know I'm familiar with Founder. It's available in Canada as well. And I think they have an affiliation with one of our major banks here. So, and yeah, it is great. It is great. So, okay, that's such a good story. I love it. So what's sort of next for you?
So yeah, next is definitely opening up some more categories. So we have right now hot flashes, night sweats. We have insomnia and fatigue, vaginal dryness, low libido, hair and skin changes, and a bookstore and a gift shop. So we'll be opening up more categories like brain fog and concentration. We'll be opening up urinary incontinence. We'll be opening up, I'm trying to think some of the other categories coming up soon. Okay. And then eventually, irregular and heavy periods, which is kind of how everything starts out, right? So finding the right brand partners for those, and then eventually looking into international shipping so that I can ship outside of the US. And
I was going to ask you that because I'm I'll be based in Canada, and I'm like, there's probably a lot of Canadian listeners too. So right now you're not shipping internationally. You're
not yet. No, I need to kind of figure out some of the laws and, taxes.
Taxes. Yeah,
exactly. And then the last bit is right now I'm kind of in the background working on a services directory. So, obviously linking out to telehealth resources, to virtual resources, but also more beyond practitioners. It might be like any kind of acupuncturist or hair clinics or, other kinds of services that can help support women on this journey.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. So, okay. So tell us the
so the website's Hotter Just Me, and it'll be in the show notes. And we do have a discount code for your listeners. Midlife Women will get them 10% off on their checkout. And that, again, will be in the show notes.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. And then we can be found on all socials at Hotter Just Me.
Okay. Well, that's great. Listen, Carin, you have been wonderful. I just love your energy. I just love your drive. You're going to do so well. I already know it. So thank you for being part of the show today. And I look forward to following your journey.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, if anyone has any questions or needs some advice or support, just feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.